I'm not gonna fight your war. I'm gonna end it.
Aren't you the cutest little thing? Aren't you cute? And what's your name, huh?
Fury.
What's you? I'll be back.
What's going on, everybody? I'm here to do a review of Captain Marvel, and if you saw the disclaimer right there before the video even began, yes, there will be spoilers in this review, so if you do intend on seeing this movie, I highly suggest that you bypass this review until after you have seen the movie, and then come back, and then you can leave your opinion or whatever you liked or whatever you disliked about the movie. So Captain Marvel is the 21st, I believe, the 21st installment in the Marvel Cinematic Studios franchise, and is also the first Marvel Cinematic Universe film led by a woman. And the woman being the lead actress being Brie Larson. I remember when she got cast for this part back in 2017 when they had the Comic-Con convention, and everybody just went crazy and everything about, you know, like that. But some people weren't so skeptical about it. I mean, were skeptical about it, considering the Captain Marvel history as far as how the comic books sold or did not sell. Now, this movie is set to be, or supposed to be, one of the most anticipated films of the year, but of course there was a lot of controversy behind it, mainly because of some comments that were made by the main actress herself, played by Brie Larson. And if y'all hear cars in the background, of course it's because I'm in a garage right now recording this video, so you'll see moving objects in the background, and you might hear some things too. I can't control that. But anyway, Captain Marvel is set in the 90s. It's actually set in 1995, and basically it's a prequel to everything that we have already seen with, you know, Iron Man, Hulk, the Avengers, Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, Infinity War, and all that, Black Panther. This is basically what's talking about what happened before we met all the other heroes, and, you know, all of the things like that. And basically, the movie is about this woman who's in the Air Force, this Air Force pilot by the name of Carol Danvers, who ends up in an accident and she loses her memory, and she doesn't know how, but she just wakes up one day and she ends up being a part of an organization, or I guess you could say a warrior class called the Kree, and they're basically on this planet called Hala, and their basic mission is to defend the world from these creatures known as the Skrulls. And basically the Skrulls are these green, they almost look like Green Goblin a little bit from Spider-Man, and they're basically shapeshifters, and they can turn into anything that they see. So if a Skrull was to see me from a distance, they can turn into me. Basically, think of Mystique from X-Men. That's basically how the Skrulls are, and they're basically down here basically trying to infiltrate anywhere that they go, imitating whoever they can. And the mission of the Kree is to protect or to destroy them, eliminate them, however you want to put it. Or at least that's what we are led to believe. Now, I think in the comics that the Kree is supposed to be bad or something like that. Don't take my complete word for it. I did not read any of the Captain Marvel comic books, but I thought that they were supposed to be bad and whatnot. But in this movie, it's the complete opposite. The Skrulls are actually the good guys that I guess you can say are misunderstood, but the Kree are actually the ones who are bad. Now, one thing I did like about this movie is that it did capture a bit of the 90s element, like the blockbuster, the payphones, the music, the clothes, the cars. It did capture that 90s element, and myself being a product of the 90s, even though I was born in '89, but growing up in the 90s, I have vivid memories of the 90s. So that time period, it definitely took me back there just a little bit. Even though you really didn't experience the 90s that much in the movie, because a lot of it took place in space a lot, and, you know, up there, they don't know what year it is. They're on another calendar, I guess you could put it that way. And also in this movie is it's an origin story. You know, it's talking about the beginnings, you know, Captain Marvel. A lot of people are not familiar with this character because, like I said, her comic wasn't as popular. They had to keep relaunching it over and over and over again because a lot of people weren't drawn to the Carol Danvers character. Some people, and I'm not even gonna lie, myself included, kind of wish that when they said that they were going to do Captain Marvel, that they would have went with the Monica Rambeau character instead. And she has many names such as Photon, Spectrum, Pulsar, Captain Marvel. She was one of the leaders of the Avengers. And, you know, a lot of people thought, you know, maybe they should have went with her, but they went with Carol Danvers instead. But they did have Monica in the movie, but as a little girl. But I'm going to get to that a little bit later in the review. But it's not only an origin story for Carol Danvers, but it's also an origin story for Nick Fury, played by Samuel L. Jackson. Shout out to whoever did the de-aging process for his character, because they really made him look even younger than what he already is. Now, mind you, Sam Jackson is 70 years old. He doesn't look it. They probably could have did without having to do a de-aging thing, but they would have been like, he looks too much like Nick Fury now. So we're going to add this de-aging thing. We're going to take off the facial hair. We're going to give him some hair. We're going to give him both eyes. And in this movie, we find out how Nick Fury actually loses his eye, and a lot of people's theories were actually correct. But we're going to get into that. Remember, this is a spoiler review, so I can talk about it. And, you know, at this time, he's only an agent for S.H.I.E.L.D. He's not the director of S.H.I.E.L.D., so he doesn't have a very high position. Right now, he doesn't have the whole Avengers labeled out. He doesn't, you know, that's not his lane as of yet. And he just kind of stumbled across Carol Danvers. She didn't come to him. He didn't seek her. They just kind of crossed paths because she just landed at that blockbuster when she was busy in the middle of a fight. And, you know, that's what happened, because she ended up getting kidnapped by the Skrulls because they were trying to look into her memory. And there's a reason why they were doing that. I would say one of my only gripes with, you know, let me not get to that part. Let me keep on going through the characters. One character that I really loved in this movie was the Maria Rambeau character, played by Lashana Lynch, who originally was supposed to be played by DeWanda Wise, but she ended up turning down the role. I think she probably accepted it thinking that it was going to be a different role, but they said that it was scheduling conflicts, but I truly believe it's because she thought it was going to be maybe the Monica character or whatnot, or maybe she's holding out to play a different character in the MCU. My guess is she's probably going to campaign for playing Storm when X-Men finally comes over after Dark Phoenix. But she plays Carol Danvers' friend, like her best friend. She's like the only real friend that she had when they were both in the Air Force together. And she has a little girl by the name of Monica Rambeau. Remember what I said. The Monica Rambeau character, hopefully, you know, this movie is successful, and hopefully they can shoehorn her character in there and maybe give her own movie, because the Monica Rambeau character is a very, very, very interesting character, and she's very powerful. In my opinion, she's probably more powerful than Carol Danvers. Like, when I was looking up her power set, it's like, what can this woman not do? Like, one of her powers said that she could turn into a damn microwave. When I saw that, I was like, a microwave? Like, how's that possible? But I guess you can. And also, one of her names is the Sun Goddess. Yes, Monica Rambeau is a black woman, just in case those of you who are not into comics don't know, she is black. But I like the relationship that Carol and Maria had with each other. You can tell that they were genuine friends with each other. And the scenes that they did when they had to go to her house in Louisiana, because that's where they're from, when she's meeting up with her for the first time, because she thinks Carol is dead. She hasn't seen her friend for 6 years, so she thinks that she's dead. And when she meets up with her, it's like a reunion. And the scenes that they did, those are probably the hardcore dramatic scenes right there. And there was 2 of them in there, and I'm not even gonna lie, those 2 scenes that had her in it conversing with Carol, like reminiscing, damn near brought a tear to my eye both times. Like, then it isn't hard to get me to like do that, especially with a movie like this, because you know you're expecting a lot of action and everything like that, and not so much drama. But she really brought it with her acting chops in those scenes right there, because she really sold me. Like, she really, like her performance really drew me in. Like, this is a woman who really missed her friend, and she really felt bad, and she feels like, what happened? Like, where were you at for the last 6 years? Even though she was up in space in another planet somewhere, and she didn't even know where she was at. Well, she knew where she was at, but she didn't know she was from Earth. So I like the scenes that they had together with each other. I'm actually surprised they gave her daughter, Monica, more scenes than I thought she was. I didn't think she was going to have that many scenes. Also, in the movie, they brought in Agent Coulson, who, you know, is from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and they even used the de-aging technology that they used on Sam Jackson on him, and he was basically sorry about that. They used the de-aging technology on him that they used on Sam Jackson. Very interesting introduction to his character as well. He's pretty much brand new into S.H.I.E.L.D. He's not what we saw him as when we saw him in like the first Avengers, or when he was in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because I believe his character was killed off in one of the Avengers movies. I do believe that. So we're going back to the 90s, and he's alive, younger, fresh, new to the I want to say to the Force, but not really to the Force. But you know what I mean. New to the agency, new to the organization. Let's see here. I'm trying to think. Jude Law's character, he played Yon-Rogg. A lot of people thought he was Mar-Vell. I thought he was Mar-Vell too. And then they came out and said he wasn't. Then we was like, who the hell is playing Mar-Vell? And that's actually going to lead into one of my gripes that I have with the film. It's probably the main one, and it's probably an issue that many others who review this movie have as well. But he played a character named Yon-Rogg, and he was basically Carol's trainer. I guess you could say one of her advisors, and, you know, things like that. Only for him to turn out to be a goddamn turncoat, and he was the one that was legit responsible for the reason why Carol was in pretty much the position that she was in. Like, he literally was the one that was responsible for completely switching around her memory and giving her a whole new one. So what she thought she knew wasn't really true, and it was mainly due to his character. So he was actually I guess you could say the main antagonist of the film. Him and the crew that he was working with. You had some other little side characters. One by a woman by the name of Minerva, and I like how it's different how they have their names split up. Like Yon-Rogg is Yon-Rogg. Minerva is spelled Min-Erva. Like they have it like a dash in between. They even gave Carol a name. They called her Vers. Veers, because when she was injured, her dog tag split, and they only had that one piece of the dog tag, and on it said Vers, which was cut off from Danvers. So they call her Veers. That's why they gave her that name, and she didn't know, so she kept going by the name Veers, and she didn't find out her actual name was Carol Danvers until she went to Louisiana when she came back to Earth. Now, my main gripe with the film, which I'm about to get into now, is with the Mar-Vell character. Yes, Mar-Vell was in this movie, and I'm upset with this because Mar-Vell is a male character. So now you see where I'm going with this. In this movie, they made Mar-Vell a woman. They made the Supreme Intelligence, who we find out is the Supreme Intelligence, who is Mar-Vell, but we thought it was another person, but it was them, a woman. Turns out this person was basically sent to Earth to basically, I guess, be a spy for the Kree, because the Kree often had spies that would go to Earth, you know, or protect a certain part of it. And basically she got sought out, and they basically turned on her. And then, you know, in the comics, the way that Carol Danvers gets her powers is that Mar-Vell is about to die, and he transfers his powers to her. In the movie, Mar-Vell is not a man, but a woman, and tries to blow up this thing called a core reactor. I think it's a core reactor. And what ends up happening is, she, see, even I'm getting thrown off. She, tries to shoot one of, like, the reactor, and Yon-Rogg shoots and kills her. And then Carol picks up the gun that she was going to use to shoot the reactor, and says she's basically going to shoot Yon-Rogg. So what she does is she turns the gun on the reactor and shoots it, and the blast comes out, and that's how she gets her powers. So her powers are not given to her like how in the comics her powers are transferred from another person to her. She gets her powers from the blast reaction. So that was a major switch from the comics, and I don't know why they even did that, because they could have easily slipped that into that movie. But when I think about it, you know, I said Brie Larson is a feminist. I'm not going to say she had anything to do with why they did that, but I don't know why they did that. They could have had a male character play Mar-Vell, even if they weren't going to have him do the whole transference of his powers to her and did the same thing. But why did you make Mar-Vell a man? A woman. I don't get that. That was one of my major issues. Another gripe I had with the movie is I have to go back to the Rambo family. In the comics, Monica has both her parents in her life, her mom and her dad. But in the movie, they made Maria a single mother. Now, I don't know if the dad is dead or they got a divorce or anything of that nature, but they don't specify that they don't even mention her having a dad. Like, if you look at the pictures, it's always her mother and her, or her mother, her, and Carol. Like, when they're going through the memories and stuff, there's no mention of the dad. But in the comics, Monica had both her parents, but in the movie, she only had her mother. That was another little issue that I had right there, but I guess. But I would say the best part of this movie would have to be toward the end of the movie, the third act, and I'm sure a lot of people will probably agree, and that was when Carol went binary. And we knew she was going to go binary. If you saw the trailers, if you saw the previews, you knew she was going to go binary. And that's basically when she's in her most powerful form. And the way that they did it was interesting, because she has this little thing, this little tag on her neck, and I think the rest of them do too. And basically, the tag on her neck, and I think they gave it to her specifically, because I don't know if the others have it. Maybe they do. But they gave it to her, and I think it's because she's the only person who's half Kree, half human. Like, everyone else was born on or from Hala. She was from Earth, and she got her powers from that core reactor. The other ones, they got their abilities, I guess, when they were just born with it. So in a way, I guess you could say she was the special one. And basically, when she goes binary, she's in her most powerful form, and she's in her most strongest. And that basically was when what happened is she had to fight the Supreme Intelligence. And when she did, she was able to destroy that little chip that was on her neck. And then that's when she went binary, and her body starts to glow, her eyes start glowing, and then that's when she goes OP. For those of you who don't get the logic of the word OP, OP just means overpowered. That's what it is. And then that's when she went balls deep on that damn ship. I mean, she's shooting blasts out of her arms. She's knocking things all over the damn place. She's knocking people all. It's just, that whole last scene was crazy. And I can tell too, and it's funny because Disney owns Star Wars. When I was listening to some of the music in the background, it sounded like something out of Star Wars. And when they were having the dogfight where Maria was piloting the ship, and I'm glad they allowed Maria to have one kill in this movie. She killed the Minerva character, like when they was doing like a little dogfight. When they were riding around with the spaceships, you know, when she was riding around, she, when they was shooting the blasters, it reminded me so much of Star Wars. The music, as well as how the blasters sound. Even the blasters sounded like something out of Star Wars. And then, you know, when Carol is fighting against all the characters, Ronan the Accuser, he was in this movie. He was also in Guardians of the Galaxy as well. And they basically fighting, and when she's fighting in space in that last little sequence, that sequence was really nice. I did enjoy that. I think everybody in the audience who I saw the movie with enjoyed that part as well. And I think, looking at the trailers, I think a lot of people knew that was probably going to be the best part of the film. Overall, the movie was very, it was entertaining. It was good. Like I said, those were the two gripes that I had. It could have been more that I might have missed. But those two that I mentioned were the two issues that I had, which is why I can't give the movie the grade higher than what I could have. But if I had to rate the movie, I would give it probably maybe a 7.5, maybe an 8 out of 10. It wasn't that bad, but I'm not going to say it was perfect either. It's her first film. She's going to come back in Avengers Endgame, which comes out next month. And, speaking of that, since we're doing a spoiler review, I think the next spoiler I'm going to give you is probably the biggest spoiler of the whole review, and that is the post-credit scene. So there were 2 post-credit scenes. The first one they showed was they showed the pager that Nick Fury had at the end of Infinity War, which he used to page Carol Danvers after, you know, the events with Thanos and the snap. And they had it, and it was hooked up to this little machine, and it was still beeping and still beeping, and they were trying to figure out the people that was there was Captain America, War Machine, Black Widow, and Bruce Banner. And all of a sudden, the pager just stopped blinking. It just stopped. So they go over to it, like, War Machine calls Cap, and this damn light keep cutting off on me. Let me get this right. Sorry about that. So War Machine goes over to Cap. Cap comes over, and Black Widow comes with him, and they're saying, he's just explaining that the thing just stopped. It was going, and he just stopped. He doesn't know why. And he said, Black Widow says it has to mean something because this person was trying to page Nick Fury, and we need to find out who was on the other end of that page. The minute that Black Widow turns around, who's standing right behind her? Carol Danvers, and she says, "Where is Agent Fury?" And it cuts off. So I guess that's her segue into Endgame right there. And I can tell years have passed since then because her hair is longer. And it looks like she was fighting in a war. And a lot of people are trying to like figure out where has she been this whole time. And I think that answer to that question is going to most likely be answered in Endgame. And I think it's because she was fighting the war. Based on how this movie ended, I think she was fighting in a war. And she gave Nick Fury the pager in the movie. She upgraded it to what we saw in Infinity War. And she said only use it for emergencies. I said people just decimating and turning into dust can't be a bigger emergency than that. And that's what ended up happening. Now, the second post-credit scene was just a little giveaway, which involved Goose. Goose was the cat, but they call it a flurkin because he wasn't really a cat. He was basically like an alien life form, and he can make all these tentacles and stuff coming out of his mouth. Goose was a very interesting character, and that, ladies and gentlemen, is how Nick Fury lost his eye, because Goose scratched him, and I think it might have infected it, and that's how Nick Fury lost his eye. But basically what happened is Goose actually swallowed the Tesseract to hide it inside his body. The Tesseract, of course, is the cube that has one of the Infinity Stones in it that was attached to Loki's scepter, if you remember. And basically in that last credit scene, Goose is sitting on top of Nick Fury's desk, and he just coughs up the Tesseract. And then it goes off, and then the movie is over. But the movie was pretty, you know, it was entertaining. Like I said, the only 2 issues I had was they made Marvel a woman, and then they made Maria Rambeau a single mother. Other than that, it wasn't as bad as many people were probably expecting it to be, in my opinion. It had its moments. It had its issues. It had a couple of laughs in there because a lot of times you don't want it to be overly dramatic, but it did have a couple of laughs in there, mainly from the main Skrull character. He was giving out a lot of the comedic moments, and that's pretty much my review for Captain Marvel. Y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. If you are going to see Captain Marvel, or if you're not going to go see it, by me doing this spoiler review, if you don't go see it and you still watch this review and you go watch Endgame, then I pretty much gave you the segue into it by spoiling the post-credit scenes. But y'all let me know what you think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, and I will talk to you in the next one.